And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another episode of Doing the Work, the first show on the Back Home Network covering IU women's basketball. This is our 164th episode, recorded on Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. I'm your host, Jeff Marlow, joined by my co-host, Kathy Amos. Today, we will be looking at the Hoosiers' new front court. But as we do with every episode, we're going to start off with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. And Kathy, we haven't talked hardly for about a month, it seems like, but I guess here I'm going to go with Coach Morin and coaching with the national team as kind of the banner moment, unless you've got something better to work here.
Nope, I certainly don't. I had a hard time even getting anything in our news section that we'll get to later.
So we're going to go with that as our banner moment, and it's brought to you by homefieldapparel.com. By Homefield Apparel, presenting sponsor of the Back Home Network, which includes the Assembly Call, Crimson Cast, X's and Joe's, and the Dribble Drive. Homefield is constantly releasing new schools or updating its products for schools in its existing line. You are bound to find something for you or anyone in your life that just loves great collegiate gear. Not only do you get quality apparel, but you're also supporting an Indiana-based business that has its roots in the Kelly School of Business. Go to homefieldapparel.com and use our promo code HOME23, that's HOME23, to get 15% off your entire first order. That's promo code HOME23 for 15% off. And once again, the website is homefieldapparel.com. Wear one for the team. And in one bit of news that Kathy was able to find for us for this episode of the podcast, Shay Chesky and Lene Beaumont represented the women at the Huber Winery, the women's players at the Huber Winery event earlier or later, the last part of May, I should say. And so we're going to throw it over to Kathy real quick and see what she's got for the Amos angle this time.
Yeah, similar to our news and our banner moment, Jeff, I really don't have a whole lot to really talk about in terms of things that have happened. I know it's been a month, but boy, I think May was a really slow month. We didn't have any new commits. So we still have a couple open scholarships positions. Again, we are not surprised by this. But we kind of expected those probably are going to remain open. So nothing new there. To be honest, the Huber Winery events, I didn't see anything coming out about, anything Coach Morin might have said. I did see a couple pictures of Shay and Lene out there. So I assumed Coach Morin was actually in attendance with it, but I honestly didn't even see that. So I have nothing there to add. I'm assuming the players are back on campus at this point, and all the new players are coming in. But again, I haven't seen anything, which is a little surprising out of the Twitter account for the women's basketball, that if they are back on campus, I would have thought we'd see that, because we've seen stuff out of the men's side. We've seen stuff out of football, but I sure haven't seen anything. So unless I missed it, now granted, I was gone out of the country for like 10 days in the middle of May and had some other personal stuff going on after we got back. So maybe I missed it, but Jeff, I don't know. Did you see anything about the Huber Winery or the players being back on campus on Twitter? Because I sure didn't.
No, I didn't see anything really on Twitter. And I'll be honest, I've kind of got away from my Instagram feed. So I used to see quite a bit there, but so many of the people I was following on Instagram that were connected to the program have either graduated or left. So I kind of gotten away from my Instagram feed. So, with that. So, but no, it just seems like right now it's being a slow month. I honestly don't think we'll see, I'll be shocked. Maybe Coach Morin will surprise us with one, but I think you're going to see those two scholarships stay left open, or maybe a walk-on that, has, earned a 1-year ride, something like that. But we just know that we've always tended to keep scholarships open. And we also know that it's not been a team built on depth. So it'll be interesting to see. And, Kathy, I don't know how much you were watching the Eastern Conference final. I thought it was interesting. One of the things, and again, it's apples and oranges. I get that. But one of the big complaints about the Knicks and their team was that Coach Tibbs and Coach Thibodeau got fired today by the Knicks, was they had not developed a bench. And this goes back even to Tibbs' time with the Bulls, that he plays a very small rotation, even for the NBA. And I thought that kind of caught up to him. It's interesting how you have just certain coaches, and I'm not saying Terry Morin should be fired, so don't draw that conclusion, but it's just interesting how IU women kind of have that same type of mojo where they they really work 7 people, maybe if we're lucky, 7 people into the rotation, and don't really seem to develop, even for the college game, a lot of depth.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I'll be honest, I don't watch any pro basketball. I know the Pacers are in the conference finals, and I think they're playing Oklahoma, and I'm not even sure on that. So
Yep.
That's about it. That's all I got. So no, I didn't even know the Knicks fired their coach today. So yeah, that is an interesting parallel though. You definitely see different philosophies between coaches, and Coach Morin's philosophy has typically been that she doesn't go real deep, 7 or 8 at most, in terms of when we get into the heart of conference play and who's getting the majority of the minutes. So we'll see. Again, this might be an interesting year for her in a case study to see.
Yep.
We've always heard that Coach Morin is willing to be flexible with their style of play. We saw that a little bit last year when, after Mackenzie Holmes had left, and they did change a little bit offensively of what they were trying to do. So it'll be interesting to see if she's as flexible in changing her style of play as, it seems that she wants to be and has professed to be. That was part of what she said towards the end of the year, right? She wanted to get more athleticism and more height into the program. And, on paper right now, it looks like she did that. I think, again, after we cover both, tonight will be front court, and then we'll have the back court here later this month. It'll be interesting to see, because again, I just think the team is so young at this point. I want to make sure that our expectations are set appropriately as well, because I think while on paper, a lot of these folks look good. I did read an article that Coach Morin and her staff, when they had set up their war room during the whole transfer portal era, or time period rather, not era, because we're never out of the era, but in the, that time during that April crunch, when they really had to find out who was on the board and who wasn't, a lot of these players that they now have on the team, they couldn't find any very much anyway, college tape. And one of the players tonight that we'll talk about, I had a similar problem. They had to go back to high school tape in film to watch them and kind of reacquaint or to acquaint themselves with that player. So, we don't have a lot of proven production on the team coming back next year. And so it'll be interesting to see if that kind of forces our hand to go a little bit deeper to see who is going to emerge as people who can produce for us next year.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, we're going to talk about the front court here tonight, mainly the 2 primary transfers here in the front court that we're going to focus on tonight. We do have a couple others we'll talk about as well, but our focus here on this episode tonight of Doing the Work is on the front court for the 25-26 Hoosiers. And so, Kathy, I'll start this off. I'll throw it to you, and we'll talk about a junior, 6'3" forward, Odessa Noyan. I hope I'm saying that as correctly as I can. Odessa Noyan. And I'll let you talk a little bit about her.
Yeah, absolutely. So Odessa Noyan, she is coming to us as a transfer from Virginia. As Jeff mentioned, she is a junior. She is the only one of our front court that is an upperclassman. Everyone else are either freshmen, redshirt freshmen, or juniors, unless I'm missing someone here as I scan through the front court list of players. But Odessa is coming to us by way of Virginia, originally from Sweden. While she was at Virginia in her sophomore year, she started 23 of the 26 games that Virginia had and averaged 25 minutes. In terms of her actual production while on the court, she averaged about 5.7 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, shot 40%, right under 41% from the field, and it was really good from the free throw line at 88%. So for a 6'3" forward, Jeff, what I found interesting is that, she actually was willing to attempt a lot of games. She averaged 2.2 attempts per game. And a little bit of the highlights I saw of some of the Virginia games was with her, highlighted in it was against UNC. Virginia at the time upset North Carolina. And in that, 6-minute highlight reel, I know that she shot and made at least 4 threes in that game alone. And so, she's definitely willing to shoot the outside ball. And in fact, I thought Virginia played her both in post-ups at time and outside. So she might be an interesting piece in terms of versatility. She did she has international experience, obviously in Sweden, international being a little bit more pro focused for the younger age. And she did play for the Sweden's U18 team, where she averaged 18.8 points per game in one of their tournament runs. The one thing that I thought in the few highlights I found is that her defense really might need some work. Again, it's hard to tell because I didn't watch a lot of games in total or whatever. I found a couple of games of Virginia that had some clips that I was able to see, and not just like highlight reels of like, oh, look at me, I'm Odessa, look how great I am, but actually clips of games. And those 2 games that I did find, she did get beat quite a bit defensively and looked like she needed to work on improving her foot speed. So that's a little bit of what I saw on Odessa as I was doing some research into her over the weekend.
Well, I'll kind of go maybe with the concerns here I have with Kathy having kind of highlighted some, no pun intended, highlighted some of the positives she could bring. But that does concern me. The foot speed. This is not a team, a women's program that's been known for its lateral quickness and its foot speed. Even in, with this at this spot, also just under 6 points a game when you're getting 25 minutes a game, it concerns me a little bit. You weren't putting up much production. Now she was getting 4 rebounds a game. So that I feel a little better about, but her shooting percentage was not very high. But her free throw percentage was. So I wish I could have seen a little more. I'll be honest, I only really found the one highlight that I really delved into a little bit. But I just, those are the concerns I have. But again, I think those are going to be a lot of the concerns we have about a lot of the players we've picked up in the transfer portal is they really, this is kind of the opposite really of where football was the last couple of years, where Coach Signetti has been very adamant about he wanted production. That's what he was looking for in the portal. He didn't want potential. Whereas, and I'm not saying Terry Moore has done this overtly, but she seems right now that what we got was players with a lot of potential that could really fill some big roles and do it, but they haven't produced yet at the college level. So it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic plays out through the season.
Yeah, Jeff, gosh, I think you voiced exactly the same concerns I thought about too as well when I was looking at her numbers just in general. It popped out to me. 5.7 points per game when you're averaging 25 minutes didn't bode real well in terms of what I was hoping to see. Now, again, not knowing a lot of how the pieces are all going to fit together. Again, like I don't think if someone asked me to give a starting lineup, I'm still not 100% sure I know which 5 I would pick. I have some inklings, and maybe we'll talk about that later, at least in terms of front court, who we think out of this front court might be our starters. I mean, she's definitely proven that she could start at Virginia, at least. I mean, they didn't have a fabulous record either at Virginia either. So it's just, it's very interesting how she's going to fit in here, because all we heard about is improving athleticism, and Odessa, at least by herself. And again, grain of salt, all that. I watched 12 minutes of highlights on her. She doesn't seem like she's going to be the player that brings that athleticism. Is again only 4 rebounds per game as well is not something that jumps out to me on the paper either. So I'm hopeful, maybe they'll get her in, they'll find a way to fit her into the system and make sure that, she's able to work with our trainers and whoever, and maybe improve some of that footwork. If Mackenzie is able to come back again and play a role on staff, maybe she's able to help with it. But yeah, I think her footwork and her defense definitely jumped out to me.
Yeah. So anything else you want to add about Odessa?
No.
Let's move on to somebody who might actually, though, provide some athleticism, and that's Zanea Soku Nuguman. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Zanea Soku Nuguman. And we're just going to call her Big Z, by the way,
Big
for
Z.
podcast of the time on this
Yep.
podcast.
She goes by that on Twitter, so yes.
So Big Z, Zanea.
Big Z.
Zanea Soku Nuguman. We'll say it. We'll get it figured out here before it's all said and done. But I'm going to throw it back over to Kathy and let her talk about her stats a little bit from UCLA last year.
Sure. So, so Jeff, as he mentioned, Big Z is coming to us as a sophomore. She is also 6'3". She was at UCLA last year. There were previous ties, though, with Indiana, because Indiana recruited her out of high school. She was she actually had Indiana along with UCLA, Tennessee, and Michigan in her final 4 teams that she was picking. So in terms of production, again, even less so than Odessa. I mean, as a freshman, and, she was injured for 2 months during her freshman year, and she was playing behind, Lauren Betts. So she ended up only playing 16 games. She averaged 5.2 minutes per game, only 1.5 points per game, 1.5 rebounds. So I chose to kind of look more at her high school stuff. Again, I couldn't even find any clips from her in her college games that she did play in anyway, not surprisingly. But she was a top 30 prospect and a 4-star coming out of high school. She ended up being a McDonald's All-American in high school, where she played in DC at a prep school, where she averaged 12.4 points per game, 8.4 rebounds, 1.2 assists. I think she's originally from Maryland, though. But again, like the few tapes I saw from her in high school, I think she is that player that's going to bring some athleticism. She played on the Nike circuit there in 16 games in high school as well. Averaged 14 points per game, 6.4 rebounds. Again, couldn't find a whole lot of tape. What I did find was a lot of articles, especially with Corey Close, for the coach for UCLA, and some of the descriptions from Corey and others about her coming out of high school and what her expectations were. Was that she's an elite rebounder, a great screener, an amazing defender. She has good footwork and can actually finish on both sides of the basket. And she has great length and is able to protect the rim. So from a basketball perspective, I think she just adds some of that athleticism. To me, she feels a little more well-rounded than Odessa. The thing, again, is she just doesn't have the experience or that proven production at a Big Ten level. At least with Odessa at Virginia, she may not have produced a lot, but she's got some experience and she knows what she's to expect and how to defend it and stuff. I don't know what her injury was, Jeff, to know if we should be concerned. I couldn't find any information on that either. So it did keep her out 2 months. So that's kind of maybe an unknown, but I've not seen or read anything that we should be concerned about her not being fully healthy. So again, from my perspective, on paper, she has some of the biggest potential of any of our front court that we have on paper here, and coming into the team this year. So that's kind of what I know is just a fun fact, Jeff, and I'll kick it over to you. Just outside of basketball, it just speaks a lot to her character. She's already started a foundation for women in West Africa and has started raising money to help women in West Africa kind of get their feet underneath them. So I thought that was just an interesting fun fact that I found about her.
Yeah, and I think this is obviously where potential could be the key. If she plays to the level she was in high school of a top 30 prospect, then we found something, man. We found a diamond in the rough. And I can get why she wanted out of UCLA. Even if you felt like you had a chance to get some more playing time, you're still behind an All-American. You're behind Lauren Betts, who had made the decision to come back. You were not going to play 25, 30 minutes a game. So I can see that. I can see why she went into the portal. The thing here with Big Z is, while I'm not saying she's Mackenzie Holmes level All-American, the athleticism is, as far as a post player, I'm not sure we've really seen from anybody that I can remember, at least in the Terry Morin era, if she can produce. Now, if she's only getting us 5-6 points a game, she's in foul trouble constantly, that kind of thing, then it won't matter. But if she's able to go out and get, let's say she plays to the level of her high school with the minutes that she might play for Indiana, let's say she gets 14, 15 a game, and she is that rim protector, that we really have, as good as Mackenzie was. And Mackenzie, I guess you would say, was a rim protector, but I always felt like we were not as athletic as we could have been. And that's not a knock on Mackenzie. That's just, to me, a fact. But this would allow us to have kind of a new level of athleticism in the interior. But again, the production has to meet the potential. And that's going to be the big thing here with her. But she obviously had a fairly good run on the Nike circuit when she was high school. I don't know what her injury was either. But like you said, she only played about 5 minutes a game. So it's not like you're going to put up a ton of numbers in 5 minutes. But this is the one that kind of can excite me as terms of really, you've got an opportunity here for basically a McDonald's All-American being almost like a freshman because she didn't play much last year.
Yeah.
And so, but she has to produce, and we'll see how well they take this, to the system and things like that. But Big Z, there's a lot there to like on paper. It's just a matter of whether the production shows up on the court. Now, again, I'm not trying to be the negative one tonight. I just think Kathy does a great job of giving the pros of what a player can do. And whereas I feel like being from the coaching side, I kind of look at what I hate to say fears, but my like, okay, what's the worst case scenario?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, all of our players on paper have some concerns coming back, even the ones we know of, right? We can talk about that when we get to Shea Chusky and Lene Beaumont and so on. Even finishing out here with Faith Wiseman coming in, and Sydney Finn and the rest of our players. I mean, Faith really is our only front court person that got any playing time last year on the team. So we have a lot of questions, Jeff. Yeah, and it was not a whole lot outside of one game in the Big Ten tournament. So we'll get to Faith here in a minute. But yeah, with Big Z, I think you're 100% right. Like, all of this that I'm describing are things that were expectations or numbers she put up in high school. What got me excited as well is a little bit of the clips I saw of her when she was on the Nike circuit in particular, and the fact that, that's some good company in terms of other schools that were recruiting her. We already know about UCLA. She got to technically she was on a team that got to a Final Four, right? Tennessee and Michigan as well. When you're in company with that, hopefully that bodes well for the level of talent that we were getting in Big Z. So I am probably on paper most excited about her in terms of the front court.
I'm going to skip one here and we'll come back to, but let's talk about Sydney Finn real quick. Sydney Finn set out 6'3" forward, set out last year as a red shirt, originally from Buffalo, but she'd finished up, or at least her last year, if not her last 2 years, at Arizona Compass Prep out in Phoenix, I believe. She is considered a post player, but I remember watching some highlights of her in high school, both from her high school and when she was on the AAU circuit. She really was more, I think, kind of in the Odessa mold of inside outside. And I think if Sydney is one, at least based on what I saw in high school clips, could be one that, might be again, she's got to overcome the injury. She's got to find a way to get on the floor in terms of the rotation and all that. But there's a little bit of here I'm excited about. She's not as athletic. That was kind of the knock against her in high school, not very athletic or not as athletic, and especially maybe into the Big Ten. So I'm kind of excited to see where she fits into the rotation. And I'll let you talk a little bit about her background, Kathy, and also your thoughts on Sydney Finn.
Yeah. So excuse me. So as I mentioned, Sydney Finn, Jeff mentioned, she is from Buffalo, New York, although she played at Arizona Compass Prep. During her junior year, I know when we put these stats together, we had a hard time for some reason finding her senior year stats. I wonder if she was injured her senior year and didn't play a whole lot, and that was what led into her injury into Indiana. I can't remember, Jeff. We covered that a long time ago. But as a junior, she did put up 12 points per game, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks per game. And an interesting fact about Sydney is her dad actually played overseas for 14 years and is now director of her former basketball team. And so that was an interesting fact, I thought, because, we definitely know she was coached well, another coach's kid in the program. And I think that hopefully bodes well for her IQ. Again, not having anything released from the school, and we haven't heard anything on her since that March press conference. Her injury was fairly significant. And so I think that's the big question mark for Sydney, is how much of her injury is going to hamper her ability to come back. How long is that timeline? Is she able to practice now? A lot of questions around Sydney for me in terms of that. And as we know, even if you're, quote unquote, cleared to play, that doesn't mean that, there aren't mental things you have to overcome with whatever her, I believe, was a lower leg injury as well, probably a knee, if I remember. So there's a lot of question marks for Sydney, but yeah, I remember when we covered her coming in along with Faith Wiseman, we were pretty excited about Sydney. So I'm hoping that she's able to recover, able to heal, and get some playing time for us next year and start making some progress.
Yeah, real quickly, but let's highlight Faith Wiseman here real quick. 6'4" forward, Indiana All-Star, Indiana player, from Indian Creek High School. I'm excited about Faith. I really would have liked to see her get more time last year. She only got 11 games and 3.5 minutes, but I felt like the time she at least got some decent minutes, she looked like she could have been more, could have contributed more. And then, like you said, went to the Big Ten tournament, post players got in foul trouble. Faith came in and gave us a solid run there in a game that was a big game for this team, for this program to try and make the NCAA tournament. So I got a lot of hope for Faith. I just would have liked, again, this goes back to our running commentary here of just wish Coach Morin would have found a way to get her more minutes in a year that I know everybody's like, well, that in looking backwards, but honestly, this team last year in 24-25 probably was not going to go much past the Sweet 16 anyway. So right. would another 5-6 minutes a night have hurt Faith Wiseman, in terms of what the team was going to do overall? I'm not sure it would have.
Yeah, I'm with you, Jeff. I think in terms of any of the players that I was the most disappointed with not getting more playing time, maybe not even just last year, but even in other previous seasons, but definitely last year, it was definitely Faith. I mean, we heard so much about her coming in as a freshman. She's a nice 6'4" height. She had good hands, things that we saw, and we saw that come out in that Big Ten game that she played in the Big Ten tournament. It was just really unfortunate that it took, both our post players getting that kind of foul trouble, especially when we had Lily, struggling for so much of the year. Right. Even in the blowouts, it would have been great to get her way more than the 3.5 minutes she ended up averaging for the year, because I don't think she played any game outside that Big Ten tournament. I don't think she played more than 5 minutes in any game, right. Which just is really not enough to get in the flow of the game. You're only getting garbage time at that point. You're not really getting a whole lot of real, quote unquote, real experience, in my opinion. So for me, yeah, I'm still very, very excited about her. I think, a lot of the other fans are pretty excited and hopeful for her, but it's another example of our front court where we have just another player that we just don't have proven production from. So at the college level, at least. So yeah, I'm still very excited. I'm very high on Faith as well.
I'm just going to, and we're going to talk about Maya Makaluski real quick here. 6'3" freshman forward coming in from Fishers, Miss Basketball in Indiana. I'm going to let Kathy talk a little bit more about some of the other stuff, but we've kind of talked about Maya earlier in maybe the last podcast or the podcast before. So we're not going to spend a lot of time with Maya, but we are talking about front court here. So I'm going to let Kathy hit some highlights here.
Sure. Yeah. We won't go into as in depth. If you went from a month ago from May, that was our May podcast. Our last one we did was on our incoming freshman, and Maya is one of those. So as Jeff mentioned, she's from Fishers, Indiana. She was Miss Basketball for Indiana. She comes from a basketball family where her mom played for Villanova and her older sister played at Butler, now transferring to West Virginia. The thing that's interesting about her is her high school coaches said, and this is my favorite quote, and this is where I think she might be able to differentiate herself in this group of front court, is that if Maya had a wide open three, she's probably going to hit at least two of the three, if not all three. That's the type of confidence I had in her, and I know she has the same confidence in herself. So, again, like if we're looking for more athleticism in players that can do and be versatile, not just strictly a post-up player, I think Maya fits that mold and can really help us. And if we're looking to be a modern form of basketball, more inside out and playing 4 out, 1 in, or even 5 out, I think Maya might be somebody that can really contribute next year.
Again, we talked about this in the podcast last month, but I think Maya brings a big upside here because she's versatile enough to go inside out. She can put it she can catch it on the wing, shoot it. She shot 40% from beyond the arc as a senior, 80% at the line. But that also tells you she can put it on the deck, drive to the rim, or at least drive and finish or get fouled. So that to me is why I think Maya Makaluski is going to be one of those few freshmen, at least over the last several years, that we're going to see in my opinion, will get a lot of minutes, just because I think she brings a dynamic type of game that this team has been lacking for the last few years.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, Jeff. So now we've covered all of them. That's what five players we have in our front court. 4 of them are 6'3", and then we have Faith Wiseman technically at 6'4". So if we're looking for an improvement in height, it feels like we've definitely gotten there. If I pick out a couple of players as well, we've already talked about Big Z. I think Maya can also improve that athleticism as well. Sydney Finn is a question mark, but I think she could, assuming she comes back from her injury. So that's 3 players that probably have some nice athleticism. So if Coach Moore is looking for improving height and athleticism, at least on paper, 3 of the 5 players, in my opinion, probably really bring that. But what are your thoughts on those kind of 2 criteria that Coach Moore and she's looking for?
Well, I think that especially Maya brings it. I think a Big Z brings it. I'm not sure that Odessa and Sydney bring a better overall athleticism, but we'll see. Well, maybe
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm not being able to judge this fairly because of this. I think that big thing for me is, or I should say big thing. One of I think Sean and the Workaholics wanted, kind of a player comparison. To me, Odessa is, I put it in the Workaholics. To me, you're at best, she's Caroline Stripling. That's kind of what you're hoping for. Somebody can kind of go inside, outside. I don't know. I said this earlier in the podcast. I don't know what the comparison would be for Big Z. I really don't think, I can't think of anybody except maybe a Binde, but I wouldn't have, but I'm not sure Binde was as big as Big Z. So, and with that, but to me, Maya is the one. I know because of the school, the blonde hair, all of that, this kind of the way she plays, there's going to be a lot of comparisons to Sydney Parrish.
Yeah.
I'm not sure
and
the comparison.
Same high school.
That's what I'm saying with the high school and everything. I'm not sure my comparison here in terms of the way she'll play inside out. It may be a little better off the bounce, off the dribble than the person I'm thinking of. But I kind of get an Alexa Golby vibe here in terms of being able to kind of hit shots from beyond the arc, but also be able to get to the rim.
Right. That's who I think of, actually, Jeff, when we were covering her a month ago and I was watching a little bit of film on her. It definitely gave me Alexi vibes as well. Okay, so if you're going to pick 2 people right now, who do you predict might be, because I'm assuming we're going to have 2 people out of this group end up as starters. Who would you pick?
For me, Big Z and Maya.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I hesitate a little bit on Maya with Odessa, strictly because Odessa brings actual experience. And it depends on what we're looking for. If we're looking for somebody that we know she can play 25 minutes at a power conference level. She may not have put up a lot of numbers, but maybe she'll have more attempts as well that she'll be able to increase that 5.7 points per game. So I'm kind of hesitating, and I'm thinking maybe Odessa instead of Maya, but Maya coming off of the bench, getting some hopefully fairly significant minutes as a freshman. I don't see Faith being ready to step into that starting role. In fact, I'm not quite sure she's going to be one of the first ones off of the bench from what I did see her for last year. Again, she should be, I agree, but totally not fair to Faith because she didn't get a lot of time to show us. And then Sydney Finn, of course, we haven't seen her at all in college. And so it's just a wild card there. So I 100% in on Big Z. I'm torn 50-50 between Maya and Odessa just because of that experience Odessa brings. So I think she's got a lot of work that she's definitely going to need to do. But to be fair too, I haven't seen Maya do it at all in college. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I would say, if anything, I would say Faith would maybe play ahead of Maya just because of the experience factor. Even though she didn't play a lot of minutes last year, we know Coach Morin has not always liked to throw freshmen right into the fire.
That could be.
In fact, I'm trying to think who the last true freshman was that actually started for
Yarden.
Oh, that's true. Yarden did start as a true freshman. Yeah. But that's one out of what, Grace came off the bench as a freshman. Yeah. Mackenzie started, I think. Mackenzie started from day one.
Did she?
I don't remember for sure. We weren't doing the podcast yet then.
We weren't, but I'm not 100% sure that she started. But anyway, it doesn't matter at this point. It's very few. It's a short list if Jeff and I can't even come with 5. So, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with how I feel the pieces are kind of fitting together. So,
all right. So let's kind of wrap this up. Kathy, any final thoughts for you tonight?
No, I don't think so. I just, again, like it is the big thing that we've talked about is we're just going to have to sit back and enjoy the ride. We got to temper our expectations, and it can be a fun season next year. And just as long as we understand there's going to be a lot of bumps in the roads, and hopefully, as we've covered our 5 front court players here, only one of them came back. Only one of them know anything about the system. Well, probably that's not true, because Sydney Finn, even though she didn't play, she knows about the system. She just didn't get a practice in it. There's not one front court player that we have a lot of proven production at the college level, not one of them. So I think we just have to understand that and have patience and trust the process here. And hopefully, like we always hope, we'll be playing some better ball. And, if anything worse comes to worse, we'll squeak into the tournament.
Yeah, I want to answer a workaholics question here about Coach Morin being out of the country with the national team, as she'll be in the Czech Republic part of the summer. This is a good question, in terms of how it will affect summer camp and practices. I think, first of all, you have somebody like Allie Patberg around who will help with that in terms of at least she knows what will be the expectation. I think the big question I have here is Coach Rhett. If Rhett is feeling better and he's able to be there day in and day out, then I don't think you'll miss much, because Coach Rhett is kind of the right hand number one, assistant. So, it's obviously not the same as the head coach being there, but this isn't anything new either. That Coach Morin has coached with the national team the last couple of years as well. So, but I think that's where you just kind of get in there. Now, the new coach coming in, that the recruiting coordinator will have to get up to speed. But I think for the most part, normally we say your vets will play a big role here. But we don't have a lot of vets that are used to the system. Shay and Lene, and I guess Faith, that's about it. So with it. So, but that was kind of my final thoughts. I wanted to talk. I'll use my final thoughts there to answer that question.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. We'll return in 2 weeks on June 17th, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central. We haven't quite decided what the topic there is going to be. It may be the backcourt, the 25-26 backcourt, but we are trying to line up another. We were able to interview Lene Beaumont last year, and we're trying to hopefully get her lined up possibly for an interview. So see how A, she's coming off her injury, and B, what she thinks of some of the new people coming in and where the program is here with all the turnover. So, but we'll let you know. Keep an eye on the Twitter account and on the Substack feed, and you'll find out what we'll be talking about there. If you want to see us do the show live and be a part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. That is the @ symbol, youtube.com/@BackHomeNetwork. You can be a part of our private community as well. Find out more at assemblycall.substack.com. Special thanks to John Ringer of rigdesign.com for designing our logos. Big thank you to Bob Thompson for the music you heard throughout the broadcast. And thank you all for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops with you soon, in 2 weeks, actually. Until then, keep your elbow in, your eyes on the rim, and let's go Hoosiers.
Wrong button. All right. Good job, Jeff. Yeah, I think let's do the guards next time that we got them back to back, and we got our team covered, and then we'll go from there the rest of the summer. Before we know it, it's going to be time to start highlighting other teams.
Yes, but we won't do as many as we did last year when we had 4 brand new teams to look at. We'll kind of pick and choose the ones we want in the Big Ten. So, hey, we're going to get out of here because Kathy's got to get some stuff done tonight. We appreciate everybody being here and listening wherever you were. If you're on the YouTube feed, awesome to have you here live. If not, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast feed, whether it's Apple or Spotify, we appreciate you listening. So good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Bye-bye.